As far as you know.
Find out.
I'm a Carter sidewalk.
What's that?
I said I'm a fixed Carter sidewalk.
Yeah, no.
It's not.
You see anything, Janie? It is the appointed hour of 7 o'clock, and I would like to welcome everyone. Before we start the meeting, I would like to invite anyone from the public who intends to speak tonight. We do have our sign-up sheet over here, and I invite you to sign up prior to our meeting. I will recognize those signed up during citizens' remarks section of the council's agenda. And during this agenda item, I ask that the following guidelines be observed. One, once recognized by the mayor, please stand at the podium for the record and state your name and if you are a resident of Lexington, Virginia. If you want to be contacted, please provide your contact information to our clerk, Janie Hostetter. Number two, make your comments to the council as a whole. We ask that you do not engage the audience. Number three, we ask that you be brief and state your position and provide facts. Number four, provide written statements and/or supporting materials to the clerk for distribution to the council and city manager. Debate is prohibited, and we ask that you speak clearly as we want to hear what you have to say. Council allots 3 minutes to each speaker, and individuals may not yield their allotted time to another person. If you do represent a group, you're allotted 5 minutes, and you're invited to identify the other members of your group who are in attendance. I remind us all that the meetings of the Lexington City Council are formal proceedings and are recorded. With that announcement, I would like to call the City Council meeting to order. First item of business, if you all will please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all very much. Next item on the agenda is consideration of the agenda. I'm not aware of any modifications or changes. And if there's no objection from council members, we will adopt and approve the agenda as presented. It is approved. Next, moving on to presentations, I'd like to invite Arthur Bartenstein to provide Architectural Review Board report as the chairperson. Arthur, come on up. Thank you for being with us, and thank you for your service on the ARB.
Thank you. My name is Arthur Bartenstein. I reside at 6114 Stonewall Street, and honored to be here to represent my Architectural Review Board Committee. It's an excellent group, and I'd like to repeat what's in your report by stating that we greatly appreciate the hard work and skilled work of our staff. Arnie and Kate are excellent and give us good direction on how we should handle our affairs. And Kate does a terrific job of keeping records and keeping us on track. So that's really quite a privilege that we have to work with them. And as a sidebar to this report, I'd like to just mention that as a committee, we respect the hard work and effort that our applicants have put into their proposals when they come to us. And in the rare case where we don't think their proposals might meet the proper standards of the in terms of being appropriate in the historic and residential historic districts, it's never a flat no. We try to work with the applicants so that we come to an understanding of why their ideas may not be up to snuff, and we we generally can come to some understanding of and agreement of what might be a better tweak to their plans. And a couple of examples of that are the a case where a building that was prominently visible as you're arriving in downtown had windows that weren't very well aligned, and we simply convinced them to, fix the elevations so that there was a more kind of orderly arrangement. And and the other cases where a applicant wanted a very vivid white that sort of a gas station white in an area where there were once gas stations, and now this is something that's supposed to be a more high-end type of place where cafe kind of patrons, and so we came up with an understanding that an off-white might be more suitable, more complementary with the downtown color range. And in both cases, the applicants expressed that they were pleased with the outcome of that dialogue. So and that may not be reflected in this report. So that's simply why I was trying to mention that.
Perfect.
So if there are any questions, I'd be happy to entertain any
Yeah, thank you, Arthur.
you might have.
Terrific. Members of council have any questions regarding the ARB and Arthur's presentation?
I have one question. When you approve a proposal, and do you have an opportunity to go back and check to make sure that they did do what was decided among the two parties?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think Arnie's role involves making sure that the approved plans and Arnie has come back to us and notified us if something hasn't been, handled as approved. But then generally we're constantly surveilling the downtown living here, and so I think that we just among us we're following up, and if something hasn't looked like it's been done as as right, we'll bring that to the committee and review it. But we're always open to anybody's, it's open to the public and certainly open to your board. And I know, for example, Frank was concerned about something at one point, and we were paying attention.
Right, thank you.
Mhm.
Arthur, thank you for being with us, and thanks for your tenure and experience that you bring to the ARB. When you look at all the new signs and the color schemes and the efforts to protect and enhance our downtown, it's a very, very important committee, organization, unit of our government that serves well with your leadership and the folks you're serving with. So
Thank you for trusting us with this responsibility, and we're also bringing up some excellent new younger people in our in our board, and Jessie Taylor here, who's the vice chair, is who's with me here, is an example of that, and she's really caught on quickly and really good shows that we have a strong way ahead.
yeah, age does not define good ideas and hard work. So we're thankful for all those that are working on the ARB. So
Right.
thank you for being here tonight,
Thank you.
and thank you for your service earlier tonight when the ARB was meeting. So
Sure.
When
Well,
something's partially approved, is it just that one aspect of the application is approved and then another aspect is denied or
Right.
is, okay,
Yeah, sometimes it's broken into several, different elements, and we can approve some and not approve others. Typically, I mean, it's very rare that we actually, if you look up through this list, you'll see there are few exceptions where we don't come to some happy resolution of the issues.
thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Arthur. Next item on the agenda is Board of Zoning Appeals and our chairperson, Jim Giannini. Welcome back, Mr. G.
Been a few years, Good to be back. The Board of Zoning Appeals had one meeting this year, and I commend Mr. Glasser. He does a great job of letting people know what the Board of Zoning, he knows his Board of Zoning Appeals and what's likely to get approved, what's likely to not, and to save them $350, which is a cost of coming to the Board of Zoning Appeals, if he feels they haven't got a chance. And most of the time they listen to it. We had one appeal this year. It was from the Weatherburn subdivision. Many of you may know it. It's on 251. It's on going out, and it's about the last subdivision before you get to the county. And it was a PUD. Were you on council with me
Mhm.
when we approved that?
Yes, sir.
That dates back, but when it was approved, there were no signs approved in the PUD. And the developer put up 4 signs and had the contractor put up 4 signs. All the signs were larger than allowed in our code in '04, and our code now allows a larger sign. And so they came and asked for a variance from the Board of Zoning Appeals. They took down 2 signs at the exit, but there were 2 at the entrance, and they asked for a variance on those 2. And one of the things that we help them to understand is we are a quasi judicial body. We're appointed by the circuit court judge. You recommend the appointment. And what we have to do is take a look at their variance request. And then there's 6 items in the code, and we have to say yes to all of them to grant a variance. And on this particular case, there were maybe 2 that we could say yes to. And so the variance was denied. They did remove the signs, and today I drove by and they have a new sign that was permitted up. But that is the Zoning Board of Appeals. One of the things that I appreciate with the members of it is many of them have planning commission experience, and it helps because they understand zoning and the code we have. I'll be glad to answer any questions that you might have.
Members of council have any questions? Ms. Strong?
First of all, y'all do a great job. Over the years, I've gone to several of your meetings and you tackle difficult topics. My question is actually probably more for Arnie. It says that Gail's term is up, but did we reappoint her or? Okay, I just wanted to check, make sure that we could keep everybody. Yeah, right.
Actually, the question came up earlier today, and the website reflects Gail's up till 29, and Robert Hull is the next, I think July 31st of this year. His term is set to expire.
Anything else?
Mr. G, thank
Thank
you. Please take our appreciation back to the gang and keep up the good work. Next item on the agenda, Shannon Spencer, come on down, Planning Commission Chairperson. Thank you for your leadership and for being with us this evening.
Thank you for having me. So it's my pleasure to be here tonight and to present the 2024 annual report for the Planning Commission. In 2024, you all have the report, but I'm just going to quickly review it. We held 21 regular meetings, considered 22 applications that included 7 conditional use permits, 2 site plans, 3 boundary line adjustments, 2 rezoning requests. We also discussed and approved zoning text amendments that range from housekeeping to use and design standards for mobile restaurants to operate in some of our local city parks. And most recently, over the last 8 months, which doesn't feel so recent, but it's a long, they're complicated. We have been discussing and developing use and design standards for cottage housing developments, and we expect to be holding public hearings soon on those. So in addition to cottage housing in 2025, we will be discussing some additional zoning amendments, including updating our entrance corridor design standards. So helping us guide future development in those areas. So we would definitely love to thank you all for your service, and Leslie, thank you so much for being part of our crew. We also would like to thank former Commission Chair Pat Bradley, and of course, John Driscoll. Thank you. We have also this year, we also had former Commissioner Gladys Hopkins left, but we have added 2 new members, Tori Bates and Krista Anderson. So we welcome them, and I would like to thank you all for your work here, but also welcome you to come to Planning Commission meetings. We love having members of commission come in and provide, at least, have eyes on what's going on there. So thank you. And if you have any questions, well, actually, let's see. There was something else I wanted to just say. I got a heads up about a question. So the 2020 comp plan is going to be reviewed this year. There is currently a windshield survey that's just been that's in the process of wrapping up in city. So housing is something that I suspect is something that we need to sort of take up and really take a look at now that we have this additional information. And in relation to that, I think as Planning Commission Chair, I think it would be great if we also looked at green infrastructure in relation to housing and the economy in relation to housing, and just sort of looked at those. And additionally, I would love for council to give us guidance on what you would like us to focus on coming up in the next year in terms of the comprehensive plan. So, and with that, I will take questions.
When do you anticipate you all will be done with the cottage housing?
Well, I think we're going to be having public hearings. I'm sorry, February 13th. So, and then we'll have to see how much feedback we get, and hopefully, wrap it up in the spring, if not the winter.
Great, thank you.
We'll see. Yeah. Yep. Anybody else?
On the comprehensive plan, we've talked, Arnie and I have talked about it. I know when I was on commission, I brought it up. So November 2025 would be the 5th year. And according to the code that it has to be updated every 5 years. So I think council can give you some advice, but also I think a recommendation from the Planning Commission on what the focus of the update would be useful and to us.
And are you looking for a written recommendation, or are you looking for me to off the cuff it right now?
I think it should be part of an agenda item where you all have a chance to discuss it more in depth, discuss where you might need data, where you might need more information. How do you anticipate it? It's just time to begin to think about it and give that recommendation to us.
I certainly agree. And I think that we will take that up, Arnie, we'll consider it added to the next agenda. But we would also be very interested in having guidance from council on the things that you all find most important as our elected officials, that you would like to see us particularly address. And I certainly think that Planning Commission can provide thoughts on this. But we would appreciate your guidance as well.
Any other members of council have questions or insights?
Just a comment,
Please.
even though I'm glad to be here, I miss planning commission.
Well, we would, like I said, we would welcome your presence there.
The meetings are public, but you have no vote, but you're welcome to attend
I
anytime.
know, I'll come.
You know, as you mentioned the transition, recognizing Pat Bradley and John's moved, and we've got some new members and Gladdy retiring from
Yeah.
her post. One of the things that we had talked about previously was twice a year having joint meetings with the Planning Commission and to have some better connectivity with our roles, understanding them as the individual bodies. And so we'll talk with the city manager and staff about organizing that. There was a strategy that we talked about before, but I think it's important to do what's meaningful with the crew that we have now. So not to look for other things for you to do on a weeknight, but we may work that angle as we work to incorporate. But the other piece I think that's critical and imperative with looking at the comprehensive plan is we did an incredibly, in my opinion, exhaustive engagement with stakeholders in the community. And that 2020 was so significant and so well done, primarily because of staff and what they heard from the public. And that collaboration made for a better project and better outcomes that we've seen. So
Yeah.
all of that mixed in to make a beautiful cake as we work on 2025 and beyond. So I offer that as observation. I will say you and zoning appeals and ARB all are supported incredibly well by Arnie and Kate and the rest of staff. And I think it's important to mention that again, because it's a lot to keep up with when you look at these reports and the things that have been going on in the city, to support with can't think of the dollars for awnings and for signs and then the paint and all the other things. It's just very, very substantial. So can't be done without a solid team backing us up. And lastly, I'd say thank you. Now that John is advanced or digressed to council, we have an opening on the Planning Commission, and I anticipate bringing a name forward later tonight to fill that position. So
Fantastic.
we'll keep you.
Well,
keep you-
I will reiterate your gratitude towards our staff. Arnie and Kate are amazing, and having served on a planning commission that did not have staff support, it is remarkable. So yes, thank you.
Terrific.
All right. Well, thank you all so much.
Thanks for being with us, and please take our appreciation back to your board, and we'll look forward to some joint efforts as we work through 2025.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is public hearings. We have a public hearing and consideration of a lease for 140 Evergreen Place, and I'll call on the city manager to introduce this topic.
Thank you, Mayor. We have a property at 140 Evergreen Place that the city acquired almost 2 years ago. It was about 3 acres in size. We bought the property primarily for its real estate. We have subsequently, since we purchased it in 2023, separated almost 2 acres from the property and essentially added that to the existing Evergreen Cemetery. There's a residual piece of property that has a vacant house, sometimes referred to as the Knox house. And it is a house that's been vacant since we acquired it. So it is available, and the plan has been for city staff to develop a plan for rezoning the property to an appropriate zone and eventually selling the house and the residual piece of property that's under an acre in size. Earlier in the fall, we were approached about the prospect of leasing this house to a Lexington family of 5. And so Jen Bell has taken the lead on the lease. And so we have an existing Lexington family of 5 that we would like to lease this property to. We've done some market research. This lease is very favorable. This is intentionally a below market lease to assist this family. The way to improve housing affordability is to to do actions like this to basically make it more affordable by writing down what would be a fair market lease, which would probably be double the expense of what this lease is. That said, it's a house that's sat vacant for 2 years. The city is paying utilities on it, and we will get some rental income. We will assist the family, and the utility cost will be shifted to the family. So I'm happy to answer any specific questions, but this is a 1-year lease. The resolution before you would articulates that it's a 1-year lease and directs us to spend that 12 months as staff figuring out an appropriate plan to liquidate this property, bring that back to you sometime over the next year, and then this will be a short-term 12-month proposal.
Thank you, sir. Member council have any questions before I open the public hearing? Ms. Strawn?
I'll ask one. I think it's a great use of the property. At one point, we were talking about maybe using it for storage. What other, did you find another alternative then?
Well, we still have to work out all the details of the storage, but
Okay.
Public Works has ample storage space. It's not as, how shall I say, it's not as nice as a heated and air conditioned house.
Yeah.
But we'll make do with alternative plans. And I don't think this presents a problem for that, but yeah.
No, I was just wondering if you had that issue solved yet.
Any other questions from council? Hearing none, I would like to open the public hearing. I didn't see anyone that had signed up to speak to this topic. But I think that's another topic. Gotcha. Wrong sheet, but is there anyone who would like to speak to this topic? Hearing none at 7:26, I'd like to close the public hearing and ask for council's thoughtful consideration.
I move to approve resolution 2025-02, authorizing the lease of real property at 140 Evergreen Place from February 1st, 2025 to January 31st, 2026.
Second.
I have a motion and a dueling second. Any further discussion?
Just share that the city has been a landlord before with houses that we have owned. So this is not something completely new to the city, but it's a great use of this asset. So, but just wanted to bring that up for the record. We've done it before.
Absolutely.
Saves the city money on utilities, will bring in revenue from the lease, and I think it's good all around, adding one more house to be livable in Lexington.
I would like to applaud staff for making this decision because it is indicative of our commitment to having affordable housing in this community. We also want to make the best possible use of other properties that we have, but this one is an example of showing that we do have commitments toward affordable housing, and there will be more opportunities to come. So I thank staff for having the audacity to make something like this happen. Much appreciated.
Thank you, ma'am. No further discussion. Ask for a roll call vote. Mr. Driscoll?
Aye.
Mr. Betts?
Aye.
Ms. Strawn?
Aye.
Mr. Ziegler?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Ms. Alexander?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you all very much, and thank you, staff, for bringing this forward. And I know that we'll work expeditiously on the rezoning of that property to be more appropriate with the neighborhood as we move forward over the year. Next item is consideration of the minutes, and those were distributed via email. You all had a chance to review them. Are there any changes or observations on those? If there are no changes or corrections, I will, unless there's an objection from council, we'll approve them as presented. They are approved. Next item is consent agenda. And it's a request from Bob Hopkins about the VFW. Oh, excuse me. Jumped over the citizens. Thank you. Citizens' remarks and comments. And I'd like to call on Bob Hopkins. Come on down. Thanks for being with us.
My name is Bob Hopkins. I live at 317 South Main Street. I've been there for about 28 years, and I'm here tonight to ask for your approval for Lexington to put on a parade next Veterans Day. A little history first. 25 years ago, on November 11th, 2000, the Veterans Memorial down on Courthouse Square was completed. Well, it was completed a few weeks before that. But the dedication ceremony that we had that day included a parade down Main Street, and it was a parade of veterans. And we had a flyover of fighter planes all approved, but the weather that day was terrible. It was low overcast and rain, and the veterans and their families walked down Main Street okay, and the dedication ceremony went okay, but the flyover had to be canceled. This November 11th will be the 25th anniversary of the dedication of our Veterans Memorial, which incidentally was initiated by the local VFW post 1499. And they started the whole program with a donation of $50,000 in matching funds. The city came up with 15,000, as I recall, the county 25,000, and the citizens of Lexington and Rockbridge County made up the difference. We eventually raised about 135,000. When it was finished, we had about $11,000 or $12,000 left over, and we've given that. Not given it. That's the wrong word, I guess, but that money is being held by the county in a special escrow account, and it's used for perpetual care and needs for the cemetery, for the memorial. Just recently, you may remember a lady here in town. Her name was Colette Barry Reck. She is no longer with us, but memorial funds in her memory, the family asked to be sent to the VFW. $3,000 in funds came up in her memory, and we have since dedicated that, or given that back to the county to put in that perpetual care fund for the Veterans Memorial. She was a very active supporter of veterans and all of their efforts and so on. So, the parade that I envision, and I will end up being the chairman of this parade, just like I was 25 years ago. It will be on behalf of the VFW, the Military Officers Association of America chapter. And it will be including other veterans in the county. It's the 25th anniversary of the Veterans Memorial. It's the 100th anniversary of the cannon, the old World War I cannon that sits down there. 100 years ago, this Veterans Day, that cannon was placed on the courthouse lawn. And for about 80 years, 75 anyway, 80 years, that cannon and a flagpole with a flag on it, that was the Veterans Memorial in all of Lexington until we built what we have now down there. And Arthur Bartenstein, his plan includes moving the Veterans Memorial 20 feet to the left. After watching John Fredericks build that memorial, I think that's a big project. But when it's done, it's supposed to be exactly the way it looks right now. And so they have our veterans approval for that. Let me read to you something here. The parade will include all local area veterans and their families, plus high school bands and school children from 5 local schools. The governor of Virginia will be invited, as well as local dignitaries and local VFW and American Legion and Military Officers Association leaders. When the Veterans Memorial was initially dedicated in the year 2000, a flyover of F-16s was approved but had to be canceled due to bad weather. A U.S. Air Force flyover would be seen and heard by VMI cadets and could be a positive recruiting event for the Air Force ROTC detachment located there. In that regard, I am prepared tomorrow, with your approval, to send this request for military aerial support for a flyover on November 11th of this year. If it works, and I hope to go to Shaw Air Force Base to talk with the wing commander there. And I used to fly in that unit myself, so I have a little bit of an in with them. They fly F-16s. Shaw Air Force Base is down in Goldsboro, South Carolina. And so they can easily make it up here, do a flyby, and go back home again. Anyway, so I'm ready to go with the request. This has to go to the FAA first, then it goes to the Pentagon, they approve it, send it back to us, and then we go talk to the people at Shaw Air Force Base. If any of you are Navy veterans, I don't mean to minimize the Navy, but I just have a better in with Air Force, and so that's what I'm trying to do. I envision school children. I want them to be involved in this, and I need to figure out where's my best place to start to get the schools involved. You know, do I need to talk to every principal, or is it the school board, or what it is? But I'll figure that out with some of you folks, maybe, or Mr. Carroll. I want to get the high school bands involved. I want to get VMI involved. It's also their Founders Day is November 11th. So I'm going to meet with the chief of staff out there and convince him that this is the right thing to do. And, we'll get cadets marching, hopefully, and maybe that pipe band or the regular band. Anyway, I think this will be a really neat parade. It'll start up by the cemetery, come down to the Veterans Memorial, and at precisely 11 o'clock, the planes will fly over. And I'll bet you can set your watch to the second by that time. It's they practice time on targets all the time, and so this will be their time on target. I filled out the application with the city manager, and so I'm asking for your approval for the parade. I know it'll mean street closures and things like that, but I think the veterans deserve it. The city deserves it, and it's not just Lexington. I mean, the parade will be on Lexington property, obviously, but it's the county, it's the whole Rockbridge area that's involved, Buena Vista included. So that's all I have. I don't know what the next step is.
Bob, thanks for being with us. The next step is the next item on our agenda, but I'd like to ask council. Typically, we don't engage with our presenters, but would ask council if they have any questions of what you've presented and would like to carry out.
Sure.
Members of council have any questions?
Just curious, for the flyover, are you asking for them to come from the south and north? So they're coming down Main
Yes.
Street?
They come right down Main Street, right over the parade route, and they'll probably be going fast enough that they'll have to fly right over VMI, which will be a good recruiting thing for the cadets too. I might add, this is kind of funny. The parade 25 years ago, the flyover was going to be done by the Virginia Air National Guard. We still had to go through all the same paperwork and requests and everything. But the Pentagon assigned it to the Air Guard that was stationed at the time at Richmond. I asked for 2 airplanes, and the squadron commander called me, and the group commander called me one day, and he said, "Why did you ask for 2 airplanes?" And I said, "Well, I've done flyovers myself." And I said, "We used to always have 2 airplanes in case one had to abort for some reasons, and you'd still have one available." He said, "No, that's not what I meant." He said, "Why didn't you ask for 4? Because that's what I'm sending." So this was going to be a flight of 4. Then I found out he's a VMI graduate. The group commander was. So I was really disappointed that didn't happen. So if we get it approved, I think it'll be a memory maker.
How many of you requested
Yeah.
for,
I'm sorry.
how many of you requested for November?
I've just requested by type now. When it gets approved, then I'll start doing my schmoozing down there in Goldsboro.
Good deal.
But- Are there any other questions?
Don't
Thank
think so.
Thank
Bob,
you.
thank you for bringing this forward. Thanks for your work on the original dedication, and here 25 years later for your leadership in getting this. I hope that you will also submit your request and get authorization for a beautiful sunshiny day so that we can see and hear the flyover.
We'll all ask for that.
Amen. Amen.
Mayor Friedman, can we pause citizen comment and just approve this now? May I make a motion to approve the street closure for Veterans Day on November 11th, 2025 for the parade and the ceremony?
Second.
Have a motion and a second, and for to put words in your mouth to include all the
Yes, sir.
accoutrements that Mr. Hopkins presented and anticipates doing for this going forward. Yes, sir.
One more thing. As I work my way through this organizing the parade, I'm going to need a title. Would it be all right if I say I'm the chairman of the Lexington Veterans Day Parade Committee, or just Lexington Parade? But I need to be like the chairman, or so that is that okay?
Admiral or
General.
General? Chair,
Lieutenant
chair,
Colonel retired, that's all.
Chairman, I'm sure Mr. Ziegler's motion includes assignment of chairmanship of this organization, of this committee,
Thank you.
and seconded by Mr. Betts. Yeah, very good. Any objections from those making motions?
None.
No, sir.
Ask for a roll call vote on if anybody needs the motion repeated, let me know, but otherwise a roll call vote. Mr. Betts.
Aye.
Mr. Ziegler.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
Mr. Driscoll.
Aye.
Ms. Strawn. Ms. Alexander. Motion carries unanimously. Bob, we're with you. We're behind you and look forward to your leadership as we work to celebrate on November 11th. I'm having gone to Waddell and Liburn Downing and participated in things such as this, such as the bicentennial in 1976. I'm giddy up here with anticipation for November. So thank you.
Thank you.
Almost as exciting as our unfinished business.
We still have
And
more- Do we have more public comment?
oh, excuse me. Yes. Just got too excited, but thank you for keeping me alive. Is there anyone else who would like to speak to council this evening on any topics not on the agenda or on their mind? Hearing the dull roar of the air handler, I will close the citizen remarks and comments and thank my colleagues for keeping me on task. We completed consent agenda with Mr. Hopkins, and we will go into unfinished business. Discussion and consideration VMI Master Meter Memorandum of Understanding, and I'll call on the city manager.
Before we begin, just in accordance with Virginia Code subsection 2.2-3112A and 3115F, I declare that I have a personal interest in the city of Lexington City Council's consideration of a memorandum of understanding with VMI. relating to the implementation of a master meter water and sewer billing system. My personal interest relates to my employment with VMI. My personal interest requires my disqualification because the transaction has an application solely to VMI where I work. So I'm going to step down.
Thank you, Mr. Ziegler.
Yeah.
And I'll call on the city manager to introduce this topic.
Thank you, Mayor. This has been almost a decade-long effort of the city of Lexington and Public Works to reduce our unaccounted for water loss throughout our water distribution system. Our water distribution system, perhaps a decade ago, was losing over 20 to 25% of our water. And the city of Lexington is itself a master meter customer because of our relationship with Maury Service Authority. We receive our water from them on a wholesale basis, and then we distribute it to our customers within the city limits. And so we ourselves pay a fee to MSA through our own master meter. And therefore, any water that is lost in the system, lost through a fire, flow testing fire hydrants, a break, small, slow leaks, or underperforming water meters, something that we as a community and we as ratepayers ultimately pay for. So we have been making great strides reducing our unaccounted for water loss in the last 10 years, including focusing on our two largest water customers, which, as is stated in your report, VMI is the largest water customer in the community and Washington Lee is a close second. VMI uses about 20% of the water and Washington Lee uses about 16% of our water. So they are by far the largest customers. Last calendar year, we signed a MOU, a memorandum of understanding with Washington and Lee, which will spell out the terms and conditions by which we will bill them through a master meter. A master meter is simply a large commercial grade meter that captures and measures all the water that goes through a large water main pipe. It's different from your residential meter, which is much smaller and much less sophisticated of a piece of kit as a master meter. And so we are prepared to go forward with the Washington Lee MOU. We have been having ongoing discussions throughout 2024 with VMI. Colonel Jeff Bubar is here. I wanted to acknowledge and thank him and others at VMI for their work in helping us navigate this MOU that's before you this evening. This MOU is substantially the same as what's been agreed to with Washington and Lee, but there are a couple of differences that are spelled out in the memorandum. First, the city is committing to completing a water rate study, which will be inclusive of VMI, and we'll extend that same courtesy to Washington and Lee and any other customer who's interested in participating by the end of fiscal year 2027. So I think in the memorandum, I say July 1, 2028. I think it would have to be perhaps I'm off by a year, but it's really within fiscal year 2027 that we're committing to complete a new water rate study. You will see this on your upcoming CIP schedule when we release CIP and the 2026 budget. In addition, the city is agreeing to provide through a fiscal year 30 up to $15,000 a year of assistance with any water breaks that occur on post in VMI's case or on campus in Washington and Lee's case. And then third, we're recommending that we reduce the tier 3 water rate. This MOU does not do that. You will have an ordinance in front of you in February for your consideration to reduce the tier 3 water rate to be equal to the tier 2 water rate. This is probably a lot more information than any of you want to know, but the tier 3 water rate is higher. So the more water that any customer consumes, the higher the rate goes. This is sort of the opposite of what most of us think. When we buy in bulk, we usually get a discount. In utility world, often when you buy more water, you pay more. The marginal cost of your water increases as you consume more. What we're proposing is, and what will work out to soften the impact to both VMI and to Washington Lee, And this will also positively impact a couple of other customers as well. We only have 4 customers who pay the highest tier, tier 3. The hospital is one and a hotel is the other. We're going to lower that, recognizing that council always has to reserve the right to set water rates, and knowing that tiers 1, 2, and 3 will change in the future. But this will certainly make the change to the master meter more palatable to Washington and Lee and also to VMI. The Board of Visitors at VMI will review this MOU at their upcoming meeting in February, and assuming they approve the MOU that's before you this evening, we're going first, they'll go second. Then I'll have that ordinance in front of you for your review and consideration on the 20th. As I mentioned in the memorandum, the fiscal impact is extremely positive for both memorandums of understanding. VMI will pay additional fees to the city for this through the master meter, because we're reducing unaccounted for water loss and billing them appropriately. VMI will pay almost an additional $400,000 a year annually, and Washington and Lee, we've run the numbers for what they would pay. We'll pay an additional $330,000 a year. Again, the first and second largest customer. This has no impact on your typical residential water customer. Their rates are unaffected by reducing the tier 3 rate to the same as tier 2. It's important to point out that because this then aligns our interests with these institutions, we can anticipate efforts to reduce unaccounted for water loss. They will continue, and that revenue may go down. We hope it goes down because we're reducing unaccounted for water loss. Happy to answer any questions at this time.
So is tier 3 being eliminated, I guess, as essentially, and the tier 3 customers are moving down to tier 2? No.
Not exactly. Practically speaking, we're going to continue to have a tier 3. We're just making the tier 3 rates equal tier 2. So, so that it's you're not paying as much of a premium the more water you use. But we're going to continue to have a tier 3 because as we do a rate study, we may want to change tier 2 and leave tier 3 the same, or vice versa. It allows the city flexibility to structure its rates according with that rate study. But practically speaking, you're correct. They're essentially equal now.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful.
So it'll be kind of like a placeholder while we're doing the study.
That's right. Yeah, the wastewater is different. That's right.
I would offer up, historically from, I believe, the 1980s, we went to an inverted rate schedule. And so those larger users of the system were paying a higher rate for the more they use. Washington, Lee, and VMI both have been good neighbors over the years and taken substantial measures to reduce their water consumption. But the master meter will be if you will, a line in the sand that everything beyond the master meter they're responsible for, where we've been working collaboratively and a lot of loss has been indicated. I think it's strategically wise, as the city manager said. We'll have that tier 3 if we find ourselves in a situation where we need to have, there's greater consumption, and we've got the latitude to work with those 3 tiers, but the 2 will be on par for the foreseeable future. That makes sense. Yeah. Very good.
Tom, the agreement says that the city will maintain the meters being used for billing, which makes sense. So does that mean that the other meters, it's up to the discretion of VMI whether they continue to maintain those meters?
Yes. A facility meter, and I think VMI has 67 facility meters around post. They want to continue to have facility meters, just like you have at your house. Theirs might be bigger because of the size of the facilities that they use, but the size of the meter varies depending on the use of the facility. They want to continue to have facility meters, understandably, as does Washington and Lee. In order to figure out if they're losing water, they need to try and use that data to figure out where to look for it. If there's a leaky toilet or a facility that is somehow, not picking, that deviates from its historical data, it might be a problem with the meter. And so that's a tool to help both sides, the city and our institutional partner, figure out where to look for leaks and water loss.
But they maintain those meters? Is that-
Well, yes, if they want to replace them,
Yeah.
we do charge for the meters. We pass on our cost. We're going to continue to have that data. Your question raises an interesting point. If they build a new building on post, and there's plans for at least one, it is entirely up to them whether they put a facility meter in when they build the building. Once we have a master meter, it doesn't really matter to the city whether they meter that facility or not. But if they want to track that data, it will be up to them to install the meter. So it's just helps them though.
Mhm.
Will that still be tracked in our portal from the city?
Yes, and we'll provide access to that information to VMI in Washington Lee and any other future master meter customer.
I would presume that the cost of a rate study is fairly minimal. Shed a little light on that.
The budget figure that we're using for the upcoming CIP in FY27 is about $25,000. You can do more significant rate studies, but I think for the level of effort that we're looking at and the Davenport information that you saw in March of last year, I think that's going to be about the size of the investment.
Second question, any estimates from our larger water customers, VMI, Hospital, WNL, of unaccounted for water losses on their properties?
So we have worked with VMI and we estimated the unaccounted for water loss at VMI using last year's data. We did this calculation in the fall, so it's a 12-month section. We estimate that the unaccounted for water loss on post is about the equivalent of 6 swimming pools of unaccounted for water. That sounds like a lot, but if you have a small leak over an entire year, you can generate a tremendous amount of water loss. So there comes a point, though, in the utility business where trying to track down a small leak is more expensive than it is to pay. So I don't look at this as a massive problem on post with unaccounted for water loss. But then again, VMI may disagree since they have to pay the bill. So
percentage wise, what are those water losses?
I think our estimate is between 3 and 5% on post is unaccounted for water loss.
All right. How large is tier 2? Like how many customers are in tier 2?
There are a lot of tier 2 customers. Your typical commercial business restaurant might be a tier 2 customer. There are only 4 tier 3 customers. It's 2 institutions, the Hampton and the hospital.
So that used to be determined by the diameter of the pipe. So now is that determined by the highest usage?
So those two things are related, the diameter of the meter and how much water you use. You need a larger diameter meter in order to handle flow at something like Crozet Hall or a dormitory or a hotel. But you could have a 3-inch meter, 4-inch meter, and the facility isn't being used. And that means that there's no consumption and there's no charge. So there is a relationship between those two things, but we ultimately measure the actual water that's used, and it's a choke point. You can't get as much water through a 5/8 inch meter as you can through a 3-inch meter, but it is the actual water that goes through the meter that is measured and billed.
The reason I was interested in percentage losses as our wholesale water rates have gone up that have been passed on to our ratepayers, and the emphasis on conservation of water as a result, as our usage goes down, and presumably VMI's usage would go down, nailing down these losses. That means our consumption from MSA goes down, and to cover their fixed costs, their rates go up.
That's right.
So 3 to 5% is that's not as hard to swallow as if they were losing 10 plus.
Yes, I agree. It's interesting, and in the American Waterworks Association creates a standard for unaccounted for water loss for your typical water distribution utility. And their gold standard is 10%. So anything, any utility that's losing 10% or less is considered best practice. And that may sound like a lot, and it is a lot. But you also have to understand that there are very good reasons why a municipal system loses water, including fighting a fire. We do not meter the water that is put on a house or a structure when we're fighting a fire. We think that's probably secondary to putting out the fire. Flow testing hydrants. Again, you can have a water main break. We had several right before the holiday. You may recall we had several right after we paved a couple of streets. That was unfortunate. We don't meter and measure how much water is lost through that. So there are some good reasons that have nothing to do with the leakiness of the system, but those are somewhat correlated. And so the more water you lose, you have a leakier system, the more earnest you need to be to pursue unaccounted for water loss.
Well, some time ago when Mr. Kennedy was head of Public Works, he was estimating water losses at 30% plus. So it's encouraging to hear how far we've come as a result of measures taken to reduce our precious water losses in the city system.
Very good. Any other questions from council regarding this matter? If there are no other questions of the city manager or on the MOU, I'd ask for council's thoughtful consideration.
I'll go ahead and move to approve memorandum of understanding between City of Lexington and VMI, confirming changes to the city's billing for water and sewer services, agreeing to collaboratively discuss how future changes in rates and charges shall be made and resolve maintenance and ownership responsibility of water and infrastructure on the Institute's campus.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, before I call for the question, I just want to thank staff and VMI for their many hours of discussion and thoughtful and dynamic tensions as we work through getting to this point. As you heard the city manager say, it's been almost 10 years that we've been working on accomplishing this. So thank you for the tenacity and follow through to get to this point. With that, roll call vote, Mr. Betts,
Aye.
Mr. Smith,
Aye.
Ms. Strong,
Aye.
Mr. Driscoll,
Aye.
Ms. Alexander, and Mr. Ziegler has stepped down. Unanimous 5-0. Thank you very much and look forward to carrying this to the VMI Board of Visitors and their response. And invite Mr. Ziegler to come and join us. Thank you for coming back. Next item, reports and communications, Blue Ridge Resource Authority, Mr. Smith.
Blue Ridge Resource Authority met briefly on Monday. We heard a report on our audit with no deficiencies. We also reelected current officers and Secretary Jamie Black. He's office manager at the authority and business as usual. Any questions?
A fun time talking trash. Thank you, Mr. Smith. Main Street, Lexington, Mr. Smith.
Anecdotally from Main Street, the holiday shopping season was a successful one. Just anecdotal reports from store owners. Current project now is our annual report to the state Virginia Main Street program, and as a result, the National Main Street program. That's coming along.
Thank you, sir. Maury Service Authority, Mr. Alligood is not with us this evening. Planning Commission, Ms. Strawn.
Sure. Shannon gave a great update on our last meeting, and our meeting for next week on the 23rd has been canceled. We had one item of business, and that was a certificate of appropriateness for signage for the temporary city hall facility. And so that's being moved to our February 13th meeting along with the public hearing for cottage housing.
Very
So
good.
come to all of our meetings, but don't come next week.
And that delay in hearing that item will not close City Hall. Very good. Will not slow them down. Thank you, Ms. Strawn. Mr. Betts.
Having trouble accessing my written report, so I'm gonna try to go off memory. The lease negotiations are continuing with tourism. We did not have our regular scheduled January meeting this month, and tourism awarded round 8 sponsorships. Oh, thank you so much. That was USA BMX received $3,000. Maury River Fiddlers Convention received $2,500. Rockbridge Ballet, Beauty and the Beast received $2,000. East Coast Elite received $1,000 with the track cross country type event, and then Lexington Rockbridge Juneteenth received $750. And the way these sponsorships were awarded was based on the ability of these events to attract out of town visitors. And, you know, they had to provide sufficient applications, which they all did. But that is one consideration is, you know, how many out of town visitors and such are going to be brought in. And that concludes our report.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Betts? I think it's the last weekend in January. I think January 31st is the first day of the BMX. If you've not experienced it, I encourage you to mark your calendar. There's no fee to enter, and it's a bit of a madhouse, but to see the Virginia Horse Center completely filled with dirt and the dirt trail for BMX racers from probably age 4 to 94 is truly remarkable. So mark your calendars and be sure to take in the fun, exciting. I'm sure it'll be a cool day in January. Raro, Mr. Ziegler.
No report.
Threshold, Miss Alexander.
We have not met since our last meeting, but we did receive a completed windshield survey, and we'll have a report for you at the next council meeting.
Fantastic. Fantastic. For my report, have a multitude of items to share with you. And as I indicated earlier, a couple of names for appointments. I was able to get on the agenda the OPEB board appointment, and Jake Adams has agreed to continue on in that role, and would ask for council's consideration of Jake Adams serving on that committee.
Move to approve Jake Adams to be on the OPEB board.
Second.
Have a motion and a second, a roll call vote. Mr. Ziegler.
Aye.
Mr. Driscoll.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
Mr. Betts.
Aye.
Ms. Strawn.
Aye.
Ms. Alexander.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Also, for Planning Commission to fill Mr. Driscoll's seat that will expire this summer. Charlie Hall, who's currently an alternate on the ARB, has agreed to seek that position, and I'd like to offer his name for appointment to fulfill John Driscoll's unexpired term.
Move to appoint Charlie Hall to the Planning Commission.
Second.
Have a motion and a second, and any discussion? I'll ask for a roll call vote. Mr. Driscoll.
Aye.
Ms. Strawn.
Aye.
Mr. Ziegler.
Aye.
Mr. Betts.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
Ms. Alexander. Motion carries unanimously. Want to extend my appreciation and anticipate councils as well for VMI staff and General Winds hosting our work session last week. Very great topics, and good to learn all that is about and going on at VMI. So thank you to General Winds and his team for that time together. Want to remind everybody that on January 30th, we're still anticipating the regional dinner that Lexington will be hosting at the Virginia Horse Center. Lexington, Buena Vista, and Rockbridge County boards and council will be gathering to get an update on the DSS, and also anticipate a report from Raro. I think it's at 6 o'clock, if I remember correctly. Yes. That's also the day of lobbying in Richmond, so some of us may be scooting back from Richmond. I want to extend my appreciation to all of your families who let you come and party at the new City Hall location on Nelson Street this past Saturday. Council gathered from basically 12 until 5 for a retreat to give thoughtful consideration of 2025, talk about our different departments within the city and our goals and aspirations for the coming year and into the future. It was a very a good meeting time and exciting to see the new location. I think staff will be very comfortable in the location there on Nelson Street, and grateful to Janie and Tom and Arnie in particular organizing and feeding us before we got started for the afternoon. Had a few phone calls from people that are distraught about the ice, especially in front of their sidewalk, that they may not have been able to attack and remove. In some instances where folks said they removed the snow only to find it covered up by the snow plows. The snow and ice is inconvenient for all of us, and I encourage neighbors to be good neighbors and work together. If you have a neighbor who's struggling, I think Mr. Smith has taken some measures to helping folks, and so we've got some resources available if we find folks that need to have their sidewalks cleared. But always encourage neighbors to speak to one another, work together, and solve problems related to such things. And I think lastly, just want to recognize we have a new business owner at Clover that will be continuing on. I do have a conflict of interest as my wife is the new owner, but invite everyone to go check out Clover. Violet Consignment is relocating to Washington Street. Freshly painted walls of bright colors. So encourage you again to go by and see. As I tell people, you don't have to buy anything. It helps if you do, but go in and congratulate these folks on the businesses they're running. This past week, we did a ribbon cutting for Lex Skin Rejuvenate on Main Street, next door to Subway, basically. So excited for a new business owner, yet another woman-owned business in downtown Lexington. And then want to, I'm sure I'll miss somebody, but we have a 10-year anniversary of Center of Gravity, which started on Washington Street and now is on Main Street, upstairs above Lex Skin Rejuvenate. Tracy Lyons at the Chamber of Commerce is celebrating her 10th year anniversary with the Chamber. And under her leadership, we've seen the services and the programming increase dramatically, and very proud of the work that she's done. And for those of you who do drugs, Lexington Prescription Center is celebrating their 25th anniversary. Jeff Goldstein's been a great neighbor to the city of Lexington and worked really hard to develop his business, and excited for their success. And I'm sure I'm missing someone, but want to just uplift all of those businesses and business people and thank them for their commitment to making Lexington the special place that it is. And with that, I'll turn it over to the city manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of quick comments. First, I wanted to thank the Department of Public Works for their efforts with snow removal. This was my first experience with our snow removal capabilities, and I know the men and women worked very hard late into the hour and into the early mornings, and I'm very happy with the work they did. I also know, as the mayor mentioned, that I'm experiencing our requirement that people remove snow from their sidewalks and ice from their sidewalks. We're doing this on a complaint basis. And we do know that there are many neighbors and good Samaritans stepping up to help others in need, including Mr. Smith, leading some volunteers from SVU. So we appreciate that. I have had several comments similar to what Mayor Friedman mentioned about some suggestions for how to remove snow more effectively. One of the challenges, of course, when you're clearing a 10-foot wide travel lane of snow, the only place to put it is to the side. And if the sidewalk is immediately adjacent to the curb, there's no way that we won't get snow onto the sidewalks. There's just no other place to put it. So we're going to have to revisit how we do that if there's any opportunity to make an improvement. We understand that residents who have just shoveled their sidewalk or will shovel their sidewalk are uncomfortable with us putting snow in their sidewalk. So we understand that. I don't know that we have a good solution, but we are looking at that and be happy to continue to look at that. Council is aware that the city staff have been monitoring a sinkhole at the Morse Creek Dam. We are looking at the Morse Creek Dam every day and monitoring, and we have live camera feed to monitor the situation in real time. The sinkhole is about 4 feet by 4 feet in size. It's at the toe of the dam. It's on a slope, so it's 4 feet. So it's at the bottom of it. It's really not a sinkhole, but it's sort of like a 4-foot block out of the slope of the dam. The sinkhole hasn't changed since we've discovered it, and that's been over 2 or 3 weeks ago. We are gradually letting the water out of the lake at about 6 inches per day, 6 inches per 24-hour period. I'm very pleased with the reports I'm getting. We are in close contact with state officials and consulting engineers and are working on a geotechnical solution to try and figure out the cause of the problem. So I will keep you apprised as we learn more and what the next steps will be. I wanted to also echo the mayor's comments regarding the goal setting session. Thank you to council and to colleagues and city staff for their work both before and during the retreat. My intention is to bring forward in the near term, probably at your first meeting in February, some synopsis of what was discussed and prioritization of what at least I took from the goal setting session. And then you can review and amend that accordingly for your sort of 2025 and FY26 goals. And that will very much inform the budget preparation process that was well underway with Finance Director Jen Bell. Happy to answer any questions at this time.
I had an observation about the snow plowing on the sidewalks. I think the problem might be compounded on the sidewalks that have the lower elevation, whereas, on the higher elevation might not be as much of a problem. I don't know what the solution is to that, but that is something that I've been thinking about a little bit.
I agree.
Yeah, having cleared the sidewalk in front of my church on Main Street, thankfully we have a yard to pitch it into, but when you look at Subway, they can only pitch it back into the street. So then you get a little bit of a battle as to who pushes the snow out of the way.
And sometimes on the ones that have the higher elevation, it'll kind of stack up, whereas
Right.
the lower elevation, it just goes right into the sidewalk.
Exactly. There, you may recall, probably 10 years ago, I'm not good on exact dates in my memory, but we had substantial snowfall, and the city Department of Public Works scooped up all the snow and took it out of the downtown business district. So when we have these extended cold periods and deep snow, talked to the city manager that I'm sure that's on the radar as an option. Usually we like Mother Nature to come and take care of it after 24 to 48 hours, enjoy the pretty white stuff, and then it all goes away. But doesn't look like the thermometer and the forecast are going to provide for that. Any questions for the city manager?
Just a comment, follow up on city manager and the mayor. One of the outcomes of our meeting Saturday was more regional cooperation, and we had a positive outcome of social media posting. I threw out a line and asking for some physical labor. Immediately, resident recommended a contact over in Buena Vista. I reached out to her. She said, "Oh yeah, we got to pool a couple hundred people to call on." Now we just needed equipment. I wrote to Lori Turner, starting with actually the police foundation, because it's sort of a law enforcement angle to enforcing the code. But she's also director of the community foundation of Bath, Rockbridge, and Allegheny, and they have a fund set aside specifically for circumstances such as this, to purchase shovels and spades to take care of the problem before us. So within an hour, I think I got the last shovels in Rockbridge County. So if anybody's looking around for some, you might have a hard time, but within a very short a period of time, we had boots on the ground and shovels in hands to take care of a problem that we could talk about for a very long time. But in this case, we just went ahead and solved it with regional and and fiscal support. So it's a great success story. It happened because of the strength of the community that we live.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Good things coming out of the retreat. Actionable items. Thank you. And thank you to the good folks at Southern Virginia University for their support with that. Before I call on the city attorney, just wanted to backtrack in my euphoric excitement of the Veterans Parade in November. I missed one item on my list, but I wanted to welcome Jordan Hoover with Washington Lee Rockbridge Report, originally from Massachusetts, and here covering the city beat. So if you hear from Jordan, please help her with her endeavors, and we hope you make a good grade. Thanks for being with us. And with that, I'll call on city attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At the last meeting, I mentioned that we had filed a petition for the special election for the sheriff, but that the order had not yet been entered. It has now been entered, and that is set for November of 25. As for things I've been working on the last couple of weeks, I prepared the residential lease that you approved earlier this evening and took a look at the cottage housing language at Arnie's request and the VMI MOU at Tom's request. Nick, we have done a turn on the letter of intent for the Lexington office for the tourism program. We
Pull that microphone up a little
All right.
closer there.
so that is progressing, just
Okay.
just so you're aware, it has gotten some attention. And other than that, our office has worked on some enforcement, zoning enforcement measures with Arnie's office. Happy to answer any questions you may have about any of those or other things. And sorry, I want to lean this way and talk to you and then leave the microphone behind. I apologize.
If you don't start using it, well, we'll get a headset for you and get you mic'd up. Just kidding.
On the tourism lease, do you anticipate that an agreement will be reached by the expiration date? at this point?
I would think so. Once Cheryl and the board, I don't know if she intends to present it to the board, but once we arrive at what we want to present to the landlord in the letter of intent as our response, landlord has indicated they'll crank out a lease in fairly short order. So
I think the lease is up at the end of February.
yeah, so we should
Okay. Great, thank you.
Good work and thank you. Any other questions for the city attorney? Hearing none. Next item is new business, discussion and consideration of resolution 2025-03, attorney compensation. And I'll call on the city manager to introduce this item.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a simple resolution before you this evening to just simply transparently and openly spell out the business relationship between city council and Mr. Jeremy Carroll, the city attorney. And the rates are going up in 2025, and that's articulated in this $250 per hour for legal services. So I recommend approval. I think this is a tremendous value and a tremendous bargain.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for the city manager or the city attorney? I will just echo the city manager's sentiment. When we decided to change directions in city attorneys, Jeremy stepped in and did a great job, and we've benefited from his years of experience and is a wonderful arrangement for the city. So with that, I'd welcome council's consideration.
I make a motion that we approve resolution 2025-03, a resolution concerning the city attorney's compensation and certain related matters.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, a roll call vote. Mr. Ziegler.
Aye.
Ms. Strawn.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
Mr. Driscoll.
Aye.
Mr. Betts.
Aye.
Ms. Alexander. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you all very much. Next is discussion and consideration of the recovery court funding request, and I'll call on city manager.
Thank you, Mayor. At your last meeting, Commonwealth Attorney Joshua Elrod came and presented information about the Rockbridge Recovery Court, which we are participating in as the city of Lexington. That court has been recognized by the state Supreme Court and hopes to be stood up and operational by April of this year. Mr. Elrod did request that the city provide $13,174 of financial support in the current fiscal year And we do have over $15,000 of opioid funds, which are lawfully permitted and in fact specifically for this type of purpose. So before you is a request to go forward with the $13,174 of funding for the recovery court. If you do approve this, we'll communicate that to Mr. Elrod. And in the near term, Finance Director Jen Bell will bring forward an appropriation ordinance to make sure that the appropriation follows the action that I'm recommending, if that is your pleasure.
Very good. Heard the recommendation. Any questions for the city manager? I'd welcome your consideration.
The funds that will be left over in the opioid recovery account, will that just sit there until the other money comes in? We'll just
That's right.
use that for somebody else?
Yes, that's correct. So the opioid funds are part of a class action suit. It's overseen by the state of Virginia. There are very strict legal requirements as to what those funds are spent on. Prior to the recovery court, city council has spent the money on the Hope House in Buena Vista for recovering addicts. But any unexpended funds remain in the account and until there's a lawful purpose for them to be spent.
Am I remembering correctly that this funding is going towards the staffing of the court?
Yes,
Okay.
that's correct.
Yeah, the salary and benefits for the individual, I don't think who has been selected yet.
The total amount was 78,000 and other entities are participating in that.
Yes.
That's correct. Rockbridge is contributing, as is Buena Vista.
I'll make a motion that we commit $13,174 in FY25 to support the recovery court.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, a roll call vote. Ms. Strong,
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
Mr. Betts.
Aye.
Mr. Driscoll.
Aye.
Mr. Ziegler.
Aye.
Ms. Alexander.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Please let Mr. Elrod know we look forward to supporting the recovery court efforts. The next item on our agenda is a closed meeting, and we do have a closed meeting. Before Ms. Alexander reads us in, I want to thank everyone for being with us and hope that you all have 2025 started well for you. I do not anticipate that we will be taking any action other than adjourning the meeting once we conclude our closed session. And with that, Ms. Alexander, if you will read us in.
I move that the city council of the city of Lexington convene in closed meeting pursuant to Virginia Code 2.2-3711A1 to discuss and consider the city manager's assignment, appointment, and performance supervising and managing city department heads and other direct reports, as well as the assignment, appointment, and performance of those department heads and direct reports. I need a roll call vote. Ms. Strawn?
You need a second for that, or
Oh, yeah,
second,
second.
and
please.
aye.
Thank you. Ms. Strawn? Aye. Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Ziegler?
Aye.
Mr. Driscoll?
Aye.
Mr. Betts?
Aye.
Mayor Friedman? Aye. Thank you. I vote aye. We will go into a closed meeting.